For those that don't know me, I'm Nigel Biswell-William, co-founder of Phraktion. I see online, I think Paul Reynolds, fellow co-founder of Phraktion. Paul's usually very good helping us with the chat and some of the Q&A. So if there's any sort of issues, burning questions you have, please ask those on the chat, or we can have some discussion afterwards as usual. But just to open up, as usual, just say a few words around Phraktion and our bold ambition to change how pharma works. Hopefully, you've already seen by now that Phraktion is a very rapidly growing community of pharma experts working together, exchanging knowledge and skills, but also service across the network. We can be connected together to deliver projects, large or small, either as individuals or as teams of people across Phraktion. We can be very nimble in the way we operate with clients, providing really niche solutions to their requirements. And in doing so, we hope to begin to shape the future of biopharma industry and how it works, and perhaps a little bit more efficiently than perhaps one or two other sometimes of experiencing their careers at some point, no doubt. So anyway, that's Phraktion in a nutshell today. Maybe next slide, Brad. But of course, the most important thing today is our presenter, Fouad Akkad, who's going to take us through artificial intelligence today in pharma, and particularly looking at commercial and marketing. I know it does go across different disciplines, and probably the burning question, up-to-date implementation or versus aspiration. Where are we in the implementation of artificial intelligence, AI? Are we getting any value out of that? How does it look in the future? And probably my burning question for the end, perhaps, is to answer my question is, should I be buying or selling NVIDIA right now? So if you can answer that question, that'd be great. But otherwise, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll answer that definitely. So thanks, Nigel, and thanks for Phraktion's team for giving me the opportunity to present this. I'm going to be talking about something that nobody's talking about at the moment, which is the AI. I mean, seriously, it's everywhere. It's in every feed of all our social media. Everybody's talking about it. A lot of reports, a lot of newsletters is like bombarding us every day. So what is this hype all about, and how is that applicable to our one and only and lovely industry, the pharma? That's what we're trying to cover today, and we're going to be digging into commercial and marketing in particular to see, as Nigel said, what has been implemented so far and what is the aspiration, what is the things that's applicable but not yet been implemented, but has really big potential. But first of all, I just wanted to share some of the stats with you, and I must say, I struggled to get substantiated references for the statistics about the use of AI in pharma. But I finally found a couple of good resources from McKinsey, from BCG, just to make sure that I'm not throwing numbers, a lot of numbers that we're seeing every day that not substantiated with resources. But this one is this one's being vetted by myself. So what is the percentage of usage of AI in pharma? And I've seen some interesting survey suggesting that 95% of pharma executives said that they are investing in AI capabilities. Now, to which extent, in which function, we don't know. But another stat suggested that the clinical trials and the drug discovery are taking the lion's share here, with 80% of AI usage in pharma in these two functions. And that's not surprising because AI in pharma and drug discovery hasn't started really late 2022 when ChatGPT just blew up everything, and launched their ChatGPT. It's been used since 2012. With a lot of language models is being implemented in drug discovery, in molecule identification and all of that, and targeting and all of that. But when it comes to commercial and marketing, I really struggled with the stats to see solid numbers. And I finally just identified one source from Statista suggesting that the use of AI in commercial and marketing in pharma is only 2%. Now, we don't know what is what companies they're talking about. Is it the multinational? Is the local included? What is the size of these companies, etc., etc. But that's the only number I see. And I would say, the implementation from what I see from my network is started, AI started to be implemented in commercial and marketing, but not really in very big scale. And it's definitely catching up with other functions like the R&D and the medical. How about AI in efficiency in pharma? What is the stats say, recent stats say? So the AI with the drug discovery timeline, it cuts it 5 to 6 years, which is nearly like 50%. If we take the average of drug discovery from 10 to 15 years, so 5 to 6 years is nearly half, which is really substantial, like amount of time saved really using AI, and that's really very important, accelerating the innovation and making sure all the innovative drugs are reaching to the patient as soon as possible. And with the clinical trials timeline, the cut is 80%, and that's through identification of the candidate patients, and what is the optimizing the choosing of these patients, and then trying to make sure that those patient profiles will be staying up to the end of the clinical trial rather than just dropping in the middle or whatever. So I think from that perspective, that reduces as well the timeline for finalizing the clinical trials. The other aspect of efficiency and productivity is the MLR delivery, and the volume here is increased by 40% with AI helping to screen multi-documents and making sure that from first screen they are compliant with like legal and regulatory and medical requirements. So that will help a lot with the marketers not going through line by line if you want, for the first iteration of the review. The productivity in general, be it like it's been implemented within, I don't know, everyday tasks, administration, conversational, whatever you want to call it, has been increased as well in pharma 30%. And that's really huge. And we will see like the impact of that on the from economic standpoint in the next slide. But that's really very huge, taking care of the repetitive tasks, for the employees, and offering shortcuts, analyzing, a lot of data, summarizing emails, whatever you want to call it, all the administrative things, that will increase the productivity, and that will offer good time for people to go and invest it somewhere else. The campaign delivery speed increased by 40%. And maybe be it because the faster MLR, be it because I don't know creative, offering the creatives more quickly than the agency do, etc. But that's also a very good sign. Another thing, also increasing the customer engagement by 15%, and I believe that comes down to whenever you offer like personalized content for your customers and they have good experience when the HCP, for example, interact with the HCP portals, that means they are trusting more the industry. And that will be ultimately affecting their prescription habits, and that will be affecting the sales and revenue at the end. So how is that productivity is reflected economically? From drug discovery standpoint, from productivity, annual saving is estimated annually for the pharma company between 60 and 110 billion, and that's really huge, because it's be it because it's just increasing the time to deliver the tasks, be it like freeing up a lot of time for the employees to do something else, be it through analyzing and maybe eliminating the errors that happens from the human interaction or human thinking, whatever you want to call it. The productivity is increasing, and there is more optimization of the resources if you want. Clinical trial saving cost is 70%, and that's not surprising given that the AI would be shortening the clinical trials timeline by 80%. So that makes sense economically to save 70%. And then revenue increase due to content personalization is 10%. As I said, there is more engagement with HCPs and more trust, I guess, because they are seeing what they're looking for within those different communication that pharma is offering. So that will increase as well the revenue for the companies. And then the savings from the AI campaign is from 20 to 40 million a year, and also that would be married with the saving that comes from less dependency, if you want, on the agency, given that a lot of investment right now is in-house for the pharma companies to do their campaigns, to do the content creation and all of that, rather than 100% relying on the agencies to do all of that. So that will be well saving some costs. And that's bad news for the agencies, and I'm sure they need to adopt and adapt. Otherwise, they will be, finding themselves in no business really, really very soon. I found as well this graph, which is really interesting. It just shows you what is the usage and utilization of AI for the pharma industry. I mean, it's mixed with healthcare and medical products in general versus other industries. And as you can see from the orange line here is the executives being asked whether they are using AI regularly in their work, and the percentage for the pharma is on the lower end of it. And this is as of August 2023. I don't know, what's happening now, but also we don't know what is the functions that they are working on, who are those people. But I think, from what I heard from a lot of analysis, that pharmas really would be very slow in adopting the AI. And the reason is, pharma industry is risk averse. They don't want to take risks, and also they are always very sensitive to mistakes or errors, because that's always turned out to be costly, with the heavy hand of regulation and the legal boundaries where they operate, and the sensitive data that the pharma industry is handling, from patient data or HCP's data or whatever. They're always so conservative. And trying to keep the status quo until they 100% vet the new technology and make sure that it's not harmful by any form or shape before they start to adopt it really very slowly. So, but they are picking the pace, and I think the pharma industry understands very well that the first adopter, the people who will be adopting AI in all aspects and in all functions, will have really very competitive advantage. So they need to pick up and they need to be there. Otherwise, they will be overtaken by the competitors. Last thing I would like to share is this also interesting kind of survey on the readiness of AI adoption by pharma industry. And it shows the index here is about the talent, innovation, and execution of AI. And we see, different degree of readiness, if you want, depends on the companies' willingness to be innovative, A, and then B, their budgets and their financial capabilities. So you see, big five here: Roche, Bayer, J&J, Novartis, and Sanofi are the ones who are leading the way by adopting the AI versus other companies. But also interesting to see that the way of adoption for the industry here is by acquisition of very innovative AI startups, rather than just doing it and developing it itself. And that tells you a lot about, the speed and pace that they need to pick up that. So they are, I think, those big companies that sitting on an ocean of cash, they are willing to acquire different innovative startup, rather than developing in-house. But also, I guess the other thing also here is that these companies, they are just in race right now to be to think about what is the priorities for AI, what is the use cases in our companies, and what is the best AI application that can provide the best or the highest level of productivity, and also the return of investment. So that's two things that they're looking at before they are acquiring. Yeah, and then with that, I'll be going to the section where all this webinar about, which is what is the application so far. So we hear a lot about different applications. Are they implemented so far, and what is the things that maybe the aspiration to apply it in pharma but still not implemented yet? And I divided that to three sections, starting with the sales optimization and customer relationship. So we will go through the AI application, and then we will say how's that being implemented, and then what is the applicable but not implemented yet, with the potential to be implemented. But I think it depends on the confidence that you get from implementing implementing the application at first place. So the first one is NBA, next best action recommendation, which is a function within AI that analyze a lot of data, with the HCPs, kind of prescribing behaviors, or what is their interaction with the digital platforms or digital or content of the companies that the companies offering, and then coming up with recommendation as to, and this recommendation is pushed to the salespeople. This is what you need to do with this HCP because they are doing ABC. So that will, I think, make the targeting and personalizations really very precise. So the sales rep will know exactly what this HCP about, and they can address their needs accordingly. What's not implemented yet is integrating the MBA across all the department, across all the functions together. So it's not just only the sales, because I've seen a lot of kind of platforms that providing this for sales, but this isn't, for example, available for medical or commercial in the background or marketing. So I think integrating all of that and having next best action, agreed on by all functions, not just only the salespeople, is really very important here to analyze it and have integrated view rather than just silo, which is one of the big diseases the pharma is really struggling with. The silos within the functions, everybody's doing their own things separately and not aligning. And then the second thing here in customer relationship is the sales automation. So with the application of AI enabling tools that can automate the Salesforce workflows, it just advise on the deployment with the territories and advise on the targeting strategies with the HCPs. And I've seen that in many applications, not the least is Salesforce, for example. But what hasn't been applied is the AI virtual sales rep, i.e. having a virtual robot talking to the customers and interacting with them and have real-time data and being able to cook a content customized to them on the spot. We haven't seen anything like that. And I believe that will take time. And, I've seen yesterday an interesting, research about with the HCPs, and they found that 43% still prefer face-to-face interaction with the sales reps. With all this technology, with all this hype around it, people are still preferring to have some human touch, which is it's not surprising. All of us yearning now to have more interaction with people and get away from, don't get me wrong. Digital interaction is really very good and it saves a lot of time and it's efficient, but also from my perspective, I don't want to lose the human touch. So 43% of HCP is still preferring the face-to-face. And then the last thing about the customer relationship is the predictive sales and insights. With AI, as we all know, is now analyzing hundreds of data and going through the historic data, the prescribing behavior, and then predicting what is the sales per, kind of territory. And that will be helpful for the sales managers to allocate the resources for these territories, or maybe dig in deep to understand what is the potential of each territory, and then deploying the resources accordingly. What's not implemented is having sales prediction per HCP. So analyzing all the interaction that we do with the HCP from either through their social media, through the CRMs, through the face-to-face interaction with the sales rep, and then having integrated data in one place and analyzing and predicting what is this HCP behavior would be in the coming months, and then what is the strategies that we need to do. So that's something, I guess, again, because of the, in pharma, especially big pharma companies, very disintegrated data. We have a lot of data and all of them are unstructured. So I think, one of the challenges is how to structure the data and have it integrated simply to be able to tell us really very good insights that can trigger the action for us from strategy standpoint. So that was the customer relationship. When it comes to the next one, which is the omnichannel marketing, the content creation and personalization was one of the pioneer parts where omnichannel really was utilizing AI with auto tagging of the content, metadata, trying to get a snippet of the approved content and then put them somewhere within the database, and then having some sort of authoring tool that whenever needed, it goes for those approved snippets and take from here and there and make new content based on approved data, and then push back to the sales rep or push back directly to the HCP. So that's where AI was really very helpful because it saved a lot of time from doing that manually and sit there and trying to cook content personalized for a particular HCP. But also the other implementation was the customer engagement analytics, which is around also analyzing the footprint of the HCPs digitally. So for example, if they went for HCP portal, what are the content that they interacted with? What are the things that they are interested in? And what the channels that they are using most. So analyzing all of that in order to optimize your strategy accordingly. For example, if you've seen that the interaction is very high in the email channel, for example, you might be deploying more resources to this channel as opposed to going for calls or whatever other channel is. But what's applicable but not implemented for those two is having real-time personalization of the content, i.e., if the HCP went to the portal and asked for something, and although it's not readily available, the AI would be cooking that up quickly and coming up with content ready for them. That's haven't been implemented, and I think it could be applicable, but it's really very, I think it's difficult because you want to make sure that they're not having content that hasn't been vetted well at the real time, because currently what Pharma is doing is although they know exactly what the person want because of their interaction in the website, but they take the time to cook it, to just put it together, and if it is like approved content, then they push it. If not, then they just review it again. But you don't want to being fast in delivering the content and then find out that it's disastrous because it wasn't accurate or anything like that. And a sensitivity around that. So that would be, I think, applicable. To which extent and to which degree you're gonna trust the models to do that, I think I don't know the answer, but this will take time. And then the other trend that I've seen recently is the sentiment analysis of the HCP engagement. So the NLP is trying to analyze not only the answers or maybe the opinions that the HCP are sharing, but also analyze their sentiments when they are saying that, i.e., it's going through their social media posts or interaction with, I don't know, digital things. And then from the language that they are, writing a comment or replying to an email, they will be analyzing, how they are feeling about your product and how they are feeling about the service or content or whatever, and then come back to you with actions that you need to do based on that sentiment analysis. What's applicable but not implemented is real-time sentiment analysis. So it's just like analyzing that straight away while the doctor is talking, to the to the rep through face-to-face or digitally or through the CRM. But again, it would be good to have sentiment analysis for all these channels together and come up with strategy according based on that. And then the last thing is the MLR process here. And as I said, AI will be able to scan a lot of documents and flag where is the risks here for legal or regulatory risks, and just ask for a human to intervene and make sure that making the content is compliant. But what's not implemented is having, again, real-time content monitoring, like having AI monitoring any new update in the regulations or legally, and then sending alerts or maybe suggesting new content based on that new decree or regulatory change or whatever, and then updating the content, suggesting updating the content, or do it themselves, having new compliant content itself. I think this is a dream, but I think it's as well it will take a lot of time because, again, you don't want to push content that human don't oversee and make sure that they are compliant. Otherwise, you're risking a lot. And then the last part is the strategy and brand planning. AI has been implemented in predictive strategies and tactics, analyzing a lot of data, and we've seen that through different tools, analyzing a big volume of data after it's been massaged and being organized in a way that's mineable and analyzable, and then coming up with after analyzing all of this data, coming up with insights, and then the human would be having this insights and then taking decisions on the strategies. What's not been implemented is having, again, dynamic brand planning with alerts from the AI whenever there is any change in the market, be it different competitors' behaviors or any external factors, and then asking to change that and adjust all the forecast or adjust the the strategies or the tactics according to that. So that's as well not implemented, but I think it's also doable with what we're hearing from, analogy from many other use cases that's being done at the moment. The second thing in this part is the market forecasting. Not only the AI can create the models for you based on the information and the data that they have, but also they can predict, your sales, be it nationally or maybe globally, by saying that prediction of the sales in the next 3, 5, or 10 years in this particular market would be ABC, and this is based on your historic data. This is based on the trends. This is based on market update from the competitors, or maybe the behaviors of the HCPs and how did they perceive your product, etc., etc. But what's not being implemented as well is the dynamic forecasting, which is like AI capturing all these new updates from the market and then automatically, changing and adjusting your forecasts, based on all what they know. Again, I mean, this is applicable, but do I see it happening? Will the human really trust? If there is pop-up from AI saying to you, okay, I'm changing your forecast in Spain to this because of this and that, will the human trust it, or will they look into it and scrutinize it and make sure that this is right? I think the latter for now, or maybe in the coming 4 to 10 years, but we don't know what will happen later. And then the last thing is the brand performance monitoring, which we've seen a lot of examples of AI tracking the brand performance using all the data that you collect when you're trying to track your KPIs, analyzing it and suggesting whether you are or are not in line and on track with your achieving your KPIs. What's not implemented is AI-powered alerts to deviation of KPIs. So it just alerts you that there is deviation, and then this is the next best action regarding your strategies and tactics because you're not meeting, or maybe you're exceeding your KPIs. That would be as well very dynamic and would be helpful, but again, with human oversight, I would say. So those are the three, parts that I wanted to discuss. Now, what is the main challenges of AI implementation in pharma? As I alluded, already, the regulatory and compliance hurdles. So there is a lot of heavy regulations when it comes to privacy and security, GDPRs, handling of the data, especially patient data and HCP's data. So all of that make it really very difficult and challenging for the pharma to heavily depending on AI on all the functions and tasks that they want to do. I think what they're doing now, whatever AI can help internally without being exposed to different crazy things without human oversight, they are more lean to do that rather than just do it externally. And things that they're doing externally, as I said, for the personalization, for customization, etc., it's really very conservative and under strict human oversight. So the regulatory and compliance is definitely one of the big challenges of AI implementation. And then the second thing is the data quality and the integration, issues. I mean, all of us, who worked in pharma company, they know that they are sleeping on an ocean of data, like endless data everywhere, like thousands upon thousands of slides of market researches and patient data and all of that. So all of those, majority of this data is unstructured. And for you to be able to apply AI here, you need to make the data, massage the data, or make it analyzable, make it in a format that the AI could be able to go for different format and solicit different insights and then mix them together and come up with conclusion. And that's really very challenging. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of efforts to train the model. It takes a lot of time to have centralized data lake, if you want, and then just handling all of this data and make it be really with good quality to be able to analyze it, and then the other challenge, and then the quality of the output from after analyzing this data. You need a lot of training to make sure that they are you need to make sure you're using something called labeled data. So the labeled data would, giving you options as to what the output should be, rather than just leaving it to AI to suggest, something outside of the range that where you want, right? And then you find yourself aren't able to control it. So data quality is really a very big challenge. And I think, pharma should kind of prioritize what is the main use cases that we want to do, and then what are the data that we need to feed into the model. and then prioritize those data kind of massaging and those data organization and integration, rather than just go into a big hole of data and get lost of everything around you and not being able to do anything, and ultimately probably discouraged from applying AI. And then, applying AI, as I said, it's high cost, and the return of investment is unknown. So I understand there is a lot of pilots from a report that I've read yesterday. There is a lot of pilots going on, and they are choosing 1 to 2 pilot, doing it with small amount of people who's trying to apply this AI in their day-to-day action. But then the struggle is with the scalability. Like, when you scale it in big pharma companies, like, globally, and you're talking about tens of thousands of people, there is a lot of challenges from change management, from talent management, the skill set of the people, and all of that. So what is the investment and return of investment of that? It's really uncertain, which actually curb the appetite for pharma industry to implement that quickly. And then the talent gap and trust issues. There is a lot of pushback from employees who's happy with what they're doing now. They don't want to change. So I believe the leadership of each pharma should be like taking the lead of educating and engaging with their employees and providing all the training needed, and rest them assured first that AI won't replace their jobs, but also showing what is the benefit from applying AI on their day-to-day activities, to make sure that it's facilitating their time and make it productive. Last thing is the bias and inaccuracy of AI models, i.e. the hallucinations. And I'm still struggling sometimes with ChatGPT coming up with answers to me. And when I challenge them to the sources, they are saying this is our estimate. So who validated your estimate? I don't know. So I think, again, the oversight of human here is really very important. And I like, a webinar that I attended yesterday, the speaker was saying, the AI, the mix of AI and human would be better than best human or best AI. I think that's the approach, and that's the thing that we need to think with it now, and until we gain more trust with the AI further down the line. And I don't know when that will happen, and what kind of things that we will be trusting with, whether it's strategic or operational or whatever. So that yet to be unfolded in the future. So in conclusion, AI is transforming things done in pharma. Clinical trials, drug discovery, having the lion's share of the application, but also commercial and marketing catching up. And there is varying degree of willingness to adopt from pharma, as we've seen, depends on their level of innovation, willingness to be innovative, and also their financial capabilities. And there is, big challenges, as I said, not the least is the regulation, the data quality, and also the cost. But the future will be holding great potential for AI to improve efficiency, engagement, and strategic planning. And last thing is AI use cases should be done. We should experiment, different tools, different approaches, but we should have really good strategy at the beginning, i.e. what are the main things that we're struggling with? It's not about the tools as much about what's our problems that AI will help us with. What is the feasibility? And the feasibility meaning the function of the data availability and the complexity of the data. What is the cost of that, and what is the value that we're going to get out of it? So all of that need to be taken into consideration before we just go ahead and apply AI. We don't want to follow only the hype and apply AI for the sake of it, as much as it's what's beneficial for me to apply AI, what's my problem, and how AI will help me just solve that problem. And with that, I'm wrapping up here. I'd be happy to take any question.
Oh, thank you, Fouad, of course. As always, a very entertaining and thought-provoking presentation. I guess, I know my take homes immediately are that, I think perhaps we are just beginning to feel our way into this new world, whether you're in R&D or sort of more commercial side. But it was interesting to see that maybe R&D colleagues, perhaps I'm one of those, are really leading the way so far with AI, and probably part of the industry that's probably not so aggressive in taking new tech on, etc. So that's maybe some way encouraging, R&D leading the way. For sure, but I shouldn't say too much and lead the conversation. But you cause a lot of chat in the background. That's for sure. I don't know where to go first. So I don't know if there's any comments from colleagues immediately, or we can go to the chat and see if there's any.
See, Bruce is coming on camera.
Yeah, I was on there. Beth's comment stood out for me actually. Compliance by design. The comment about bringing legal with us. It's our fault they're out of touch because we're not bringing them with us. I think is well, made me laugh anyway. I think that's very true. This is all very scary for anybody working in an MLR kind of job, medical legal review type job, and I don't know how you solve that problem, but I think they need to be part of solving the problem, not on the tail end of we'd like to solve the problem, please sign this off. In contrast, I will say my early discussions with people in medical and legal roles on this topic, they seem to want to run a mile from it. They don't want to run to it, they want to run away from it. And I don't know how we bridge that gap. They need to be part of solving the problem, but they don't want to have a conversation about the problem at the minute, as far as I can see.
This is Beth. I would love to weigh in. I'm the one who made the compliance by design comment. And sorry, I'm not able to go on camera at the moment. In my experience, being able to make really great headway on that while I was head of commercial data strategy at Merck was exactly that. There are very few people who can speak tech, legalese, and business simultaneously. But as soon as you can get that person in the conversation, everything moves much more quickly. So a huge amount of issues that we had seen, for example, if you're talking about IDs of HCPs, and again, this is in US, so we have a lot more data. But if we wanted to do bridging of cookies and IP addresses, et cetera, behind the scenes in a compliant privacy way, part of the issue that literally was just put off into legal world for a year and a half until we brought in someone who speaks all those languages was they could not talk. There's an IP address, then there's tokenization, then there's actual IDs and NPI IDs, and what are all those different things? And because they couldn't actually have that conversation, it just got put off and put off and put off without anyone realizing that it was simply a language and understanding issue on the legal side. Other issues where we saw that they couldn't move forward from one therapeutic area to another is that a legal team lead had come from an area where data hadn't been available before. And so her assumptions as she moved to a place where data was available, a different therapeutic area in which functioned in a different way for the transactional data to be able to track that. When she moved in that space, it was completely feasible and had been happening for decades. But she thought it wasn't allowed to happen because the world she came from, it didn't happen. And when we pushed back on that and said, go talk to your colleagues in these other areas, it was instantly agreed. 2 years of negotiation with legal on that, and it just said, go talk to your colleagues.
Wow.
This is Robin. The way I tackled it with my MLR team is I got AI to prioritize the content that was going through MLR. So were we just asking for a change of a graphic? Were we asking for a change of use? Were we asking for a change of a headline? Were we rewriting the whole of the first 3 paragraphs? And by putting the MLR content with that AI-generated assessment, it approved their efficiency, because they were really quick to approve some content when it was just a minor change, such as a graphic or a bit of use. And that's how I've started to bring them on board with the journey, by addressing the process.
Quick question on that one. Did you go directly to the legal to ask them if they were open to that, or did you go through a commercial space to have that happen? Because I found that the commercial people are frightened to address the legal people in that way, but the legal people are actually open to it.
In my personal case, I approached all 3 departments, legal, regulatory, and medical, and said I wanted to introduce a way to help them approve their efficiency on approvals.
Excellent. Yep. You went to all 3.
One of the things that I was going through with, like, PCG really had fantastic reports on applying of AI, and this is not particular for pharma. It's, what is the steps, the framework when you're going to apply in big organization, and one part is the process really. And here is like, emphasis on emphasizing about, the establishing the process and governance and policies before you start to apply it in different places. So don't leave it to, like, different departments to suggest or maybe to initiate how they're going to apply AI. A leadership should be like setting this tone through the process, i.e., if you're going to add AI for MLR, right? What is the process for that? What is the functions that need to be involved? Who would be like, approving that? And what is the, getting the buy-in from all the functions about it, agreeing on that before you go and make it like, happen. And also don't leave it like to individual people to initiate it themselves and trying to make up their way as to how to implement it. So I guess the leadership here is really very important and crucial to step in and set the tone, put in the governance, the SOPs, the processes, and having all people buy in on that before you start to apply, what are the use cases that you're going to be pilot before you applying it permanently.
Okay, we've got a hand up from Tony. I can see a few people have come off mute. So we're going to go to Tony next. If you want to ask a question, it helps us if you put your hand up on the icon and then we cue the questions. Okay,
can we unshare the slides as well so we can see more faces?
Oh, yeah.
Over to you, Tony. Next up.
Thanks, Paul. Along the comment from Beth, and okay, I haven't been working for the last 4 months, so I've been out of action, but I recall discussions with a couple of companies earlier this year who were, for political reasons, and maybe they were not ready, but they were afraid to put performance measures in managers' contracts to reach certain goals because, they were not ready, or they felt uncomfortable about doing this. The managers were rather uncomfortable. So Beth's comment about finding somebody who has the IT jargon knowledge and who is commercially sound and in this industry, this is a unique find. But I found this to be a bit of a delay in that there was a political, if not internal, sort of performance measure delay. Has that changed, or is it still an issue?
I think one of the things that's really important, and to your point, is having like domain experts whenever you're designing, your AI model. For example, you're talking about contracts, right? Not the IT who are gonna decide what is the AI model will help you with, as much as somebody who's working on contracting, who's been there on the ground, working with different customers, stakeholders, supply chain, commercial, etc., who know exactly what is the pain point and what are the things that they believe that might help them to make this work productive, efficient, and then working alongside the IT or the developers who is implementing that solution to implement that, rather than just keeping it like, I applied AI for contracting, but there is no any benefit from that because the domain expert, people who understand that very well, wasn't there. So again, having a strategy of implementing AI is really very important. It's not the tool who's going to lead us to apply as much as the strategy why we're doing that, and should be like cross-functionally done.
Yeah, I would agree, Fouad, because what we see often is that the AI pilot is driven from an omni team or an innovation team who don't understand the operation of the end product. So you end up with it getting logjammed. Dave, I can see you've been off mute for a while. Dave, your next question.
Yeah, thanks. It was a question about how much the bottom right corner on the last slide was all about the value that the AI brings, and it has been quite clear. Let's think about why we're doing it, what the problem is, what the value is. I wonder if anyone's thought through what the negative consequences of introducing the AI as part of that assessment. So, for example, next best action for someone in a field force. At the moment, you need relatively intelligent people in the field to be able to think about what the next best thing to do is, analyze the data, think about who their customers are and all that sort of a local knowledge. If you give them an AI system that says, right, your next best action is that, do we stop thinking?
We do. I'm going to be honest. Yeah. I mean, but again, until we, I mean, I don't, because I still at the stage where I examine everything really coming from AI.
Yeah.
But maybe I think there was a graph that I didn't have the time to see. It's the sync between the AI and the human. So the graph, it depends on the level of sophistication of the AI tool versus the expertise of the person. If the person is really expert in their domain, and we have excellent vetted AI tool, also very excellent, then that's the best marriage. But if there is any shortage of the expertise of the person, or the AI tool is not as good, then a human oversight here should be very important and crucial. And the output, the final output, and the sign off of the output should be by the human, because you don't wanna, again, you need to keep, to your point, human thinking and vetting and challenging the AI. Until we're at the point with such models or agents, what they call it now, those agents are trusted enough because they are trained enough, and you've seen a lot of good output out of them. And whenever the output is not good, you retrain them again with what should be good. Until you trust them, you need to think a lot, really. But then again, it should be trusted by, maybe we can start with small things, low risk things, until we trust, and then maybe scale that up to bigger, maybe decisions. For example, I was listening to somebody's very expert in healthcare, and they said we might be like trusting AI to diagnose some really very small, like undangerous kind of diseases, rather than having a patient with like heart disease be diagnosed by AI. But we can't trust them with a cold and flu and those small tiny things, infection in the ear, whatever. But we need to, it takes a lot of time to trust them with this. But then once we trust them, we can build on that on more serious illnesses. So I think, the time, it will take time. I don't know when it's going to be fully, and whether the human, would be allowing AI to do that at a certain point. That's yet to be helpful.
Yeah, I think with Beth, where she says we need humans in the loop always. And I think, the danger we've got is, I think you'd said earlier, the people who are taking the decisions about the implementation aren't the people at the coal face. And that's the same about, deploying people in sales teams. There'll be somebody with a spreadsheet somewhere saying, well, that's terribly expensive. We don't need to pay people at that grade if we can pay them at a lower grade, but they don't need to think quite so much because we've got the AI doing all that for them. So let's do this. And then at some point, they'll suddenly realize they actually haven't got the expertise that the doctors trust and respect, or the medical profession trust and respect. So I think we need to walk into this very carefully, not being a Luddite or anything, but I think technology is fantastic and it's terribly exciting. But I think we often jump at, isn't this brilliant? Let's just have a good go at it, without really stopping to think through the use case, the problem, and all the rest of it. So thank you. Terribly interesting.
Don't worry, Dave. None of us are redundant yet, I think.
We've got a hand up from Akram, and I can also see that
Akram.
Sanjay and Tom have come off mute. So let's go with Akram next, and then put your hand up icon, and then we know that you've got a question.
You're on mute.
I think we'll hear you.
You're on mute, Akram.
No, I can't hear you, Akram, but you seem to be on mute now. But,
Okay. Hey, put the question into chat. What I'll do, Tom, you've been off mute for a while. Do you want to jump in? Have you got a question?
I really didn't.
Sorry, Tom.
But since you put me on the
think I want
spot,
to.
I'm being reflective here a bit, chuckling in some hands. Anyone had any kids try to write a thank you note recently or do an outline? I mean, some of these things, it's just, that the thinking and, I think of just to the comment to the thinking that needs to go with this. We become very reliant sometimes. And I even think to the analogy that what took place it all became about PDEs and costs of PDEs and structure. I mean, we built these sales forces that way over expanded the needs that were needed in the marketplace. And, it was kind of an example to me that the thinking didn't take place of really kind of some practical applications. So I find it interesting, but I still, I think I'm trying to think through just finding that balance where, okay, how is it a tool, but doesn't take the human out of this for the practical thinking? And then on a very practical note, I was also intrigued with the LMR discussion. And I'm really kind of naively asking it, but it was just, how do things practically get referenced and annotated and all those things, when some of this is used, and, do you have to somehow do the teams require you really to get to original sourcing somehow? So I don't know, Paul, it's a long-winded. Those were just some of the things I was thinking about as I was kind of listening.
I mean, I wanted to pick up on sort of building a little bit on that, Tom. Right, Fouad, you made the comment about, start easy, and you made the analogy to colds. I think that's the right way to do it. I mean, I had a discussion with a company recently, and I won't name them, but, I said, well, we're putting a website together, a brand.com website. I'm saying, well, why don't you confine the AI to a sandpit? It can only go to certain data sources, and just let it answer natural language questions, and put a big blooming health warning around the outside that says, this is an AI, treat with extreme caution. If it sounds a bit iffy, it may well be, press here to speak to a human being, which seemed an eminently sensible thing to my mind anyway. But I mean, that was way too scary for the medic in question, who's, I would say, quite average in terms of attitude to risk. And yet the same company in a different country, they're doing exactly that, but they're calling it an FAQ. And it's just exactly the same process, and it's live at the moment, so customers can access it. And the argument I had with the medic, which I thought was also a good argument, was I said, well, all this data is in the public domain anyway. What do you think happens when someone goes onto Google and asks the same question? It's accessing the same data. Is it not better to at least try and steer people? But no, apparently not. I don't know. I think we'll get there, but I think it's slow.
Sanjay, you've been patiently waiting. Your hands up. You're next. You're in the chair.
Thank you so much. So Pat, very nice talk. Nice overview. Maybe I'm a little confused. In one of the earlier slides, you said that there will be about a cost saving of $50 to $70 billion across pharma industry, if I got that number correct. And then in the later part of your talk, you did talk about some of the challenges, and you did say that the ROI is questionable. So I wonder whether, like say, at one point you say there's a big savings, and, where that number is coming from. And then at the same time, people are still unsure about ROI, then why they are making that investment. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
If at all they're making that investment, which areas are trying to make more investment at this point, so they can see that there is going to be some ROI coming out of that investment?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the return of investment, I think, in the pilots that they are doing now. So they're running a lot of pilots to see what is the kind of productivity level A, and then B, what is the effect of this particular AI on the output. Like, be it like, are we saving if we apply AI in this particular job, and that will give us more return from having higher productivity, having more revenue, or saving maybe in our operations, etc., etc. So there is a huge pilots, different pilots. There are some places where it's been established that it's good and it's saving, like MLR, like the content optimization and personalization, like the kind of the digital footprint analysis. So all of that proved to be saving money, and that's where I said there is saving. And also the productivity, like saving time of people from reading 30 emails in half a day. Now it's just like 10 minutes. So that will give them free up more time. So that's, I think, the modeling here about, what is the FTE cost for you and what is the productivity of them. It's been proven in some areas, but I'm talking about the rest of investment in piloting and doing new things, innovative things here. Is it effective? Especially when you scale it up globally, especially for global pharma, when you scale it up in 50 countries, will it be applicable? And what is the investment that you need to do from change management and all of that, looking into these numbers before applying it? So sorry for the confusion if it wasn't clear.
Okay, thank you.
I think the 2% said a lot as well at the start, is the fact that 2% of the spend is still being allocated to sales and marketing. So it tells us that there's still a hesitation in understanding where to put this. I mean, just to give you an idea as well, I got a cold call this week from a typical offshore cold call company saying they wanted to sell me some AI. They didn't really understand my business. They just said, you need to buy some AI. So I think the other problem out there is there's an awful lot of charlatans at the moment trying to misuse the concept to sell into pharma. And that probably is also the case with the big agencies, because they are maybe presenting those very big saving possibilities to get in the door. And then really the use cases that they can attach value to Sanjay's point, are limited. But let's face it, this is the sixth wave of innovation that's going to change the planet. The last time it was data and computing. This is the sixth wave. This is going to happen. We will not stop this, and pharma will eventually embrace AI structurally. So, but we're just in those first few years. But we, Bruce and I have seen opportunities literally in the last couple of weeks, plugging in huge amounts of data, qualitative data into Notebook LM, and it just summarizes in 5 seconds, doesn't it, Bruce?
Wasn't it?
What we could do in a day.
It was literally audio recordings of Paul and I interviewing. So you got Scottish accent, you got Paul's English accent, you got American accents, and it was just audio recordings of hour-long interviews, millions of them, and it just sucked it all up and generated a report that was, I got to be honest, it would be hard to argue what we would have done was going to be any better. It was really, really quite impressive, And you think that's quite a time saving. The only catch was, ask it to do it a second time, the report's different. Ask it to do it a third time, the report's different. And that, I think, is the problem with AI. It's very hard to kind of get it to make little adjustments. See, on the creative side as well, yeah, go make me an image of X, Y, and Z. Okay, great. So I had a real life one. We were campaigning in Ireland. Made me an image of an Irish footballer, but in front of, Irish Gaelic football goals. Okay, good. Can we have them looking the other way? Not so easy, that. Not the same one, you get a different footballer, In fact, I mean, that's okay, to be honest, in a lot of industries, but pharma struggles with these, it's got to be like exactly what they want. It can't be like, similar, So I think it's good for generating sort of basic pictures, but then you need an actual proper creative person taking over, But it's getting there.
One interesting thing I've heard also from one big pharma, what they're doing is that they're having someone who's dealing with the AI vendors, and his job is only to analyze their claims around the saving by their AI. So they're just going through it like, is it really what you're promising? Or is it like, a fluff, numbers that have been plucked out of the sky and just being thrown into a value proposition? So I thought that's really smart, because although maybe they are rushed, sometimes you have the tendency to rush to apply AI because you've seen a glamorous marketing campaign about this particular tool, but really does it deliver what it promises? And that's where you need to vet before you just go ahead and apply or maybe purchase.
Well, Nigel, I think that's it for questions. Yeah. Hands up, back to you to summarize with 2 minutes to go.
Well, firstly, say thank you again, Brad, for a very thought-provoking discussion, as always. So I think take-home message for me, at least, I think it's very clear that Phraktion is leading the way in thinking around AI. And if anybody's listening to this, beyond into any kind of YouTube recording, you need to come and speak to Phraktion, Fouad and others around thinking about how you implement your AI strategies and really out taking leadership around that in your company. So I think that's very clear from the discussion, which has always been the case. The subjects we delve into, it's always very apparent. The depth of expertise and experience we have across the network is really, truly impressive. And, we need to work together to put that out there to many different clients across Phraktion. There's a valuable resource here. So that's the soapbox, if you like. But thank you, Fouad. And just an appeal, anybody out there? I know Lucilia is already put a hand up for a forthcoming webinar. If you'd like to take the stage or have some different ideas around the webinar, how we do this into the future, always available for a chat. So just let me know. But with that, I shall let you go. Great to see so many familiar and one or two less familiar faces this time. So with that, thanks everyone. Bye now.